Hey there, everybody. Steve the Amateur Historian. I'm kind of surrounded here. Before today's video, I just want to remind you, as always, if you like what I'm doing, you want to help my channel grow, you want to help me be able to keep putting out the kind of content that I do for as long as possible in as many different ways as I can. Remember to like, share, subscribe. These things all help my channel to grow. And if you want to help me financially, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Thank you in advance if you're willing to help me out in that way. Even a buck or two is thoroughly appreciated. Also, link to my Instagram and Facebook pages connected to my channel are there as well. And all that said, let's get to today's video. Hey there, everybody. Steve the Amateur Historian. How y'all doing? And I have just a fun little video I wanted to do utilizing, is that a spider? That's some dust on this case. Utilizing some of the pretty expansive collection of media that I have. Now, a little while back I did a video delving into my childhood growing up, predominantly only having public domain VHS cartoons growing up. Never had the more higher end stuff, the stuff you actually needed to get permission for. And as an adult, times are a little bit different. A lot of the more well-known public domain companies are not the ones that were around making these cartoon videos back in the 80s and early 90s, a lot of times under very sketchy and very deeply troubling circumstances. But as an adult, I'm obviously not buying a whole lot of stuff that's, cartoons. I'm buying a lot of other stuff. And because of that, as you can see, probably by what's surrounding me, I have a pretty extensive experience buying public domain stuff. And I just wanted to go through my collection with you, showing what I have in all its various forms, while also kind of showing off kind of how these public domain productions look and just the general vibe of public domain DVD releases as they've existed more in the 21st century as opposed to the 20th century. Steve the Amateur Historian. So of course, one of the greatest criticisms of public domain, it was the case back in the 80s, it's the case today, is that a lot of the content churned out is not of the best quality. A lot of times you're getting, one of the big things, one of the reasons there's so many public domain companies is because you can get products practically for nothing and then resell them and make money for it. So you're giving nothing to make money. That's, one of the big pulls. But because of that, you're trying to make the most money you can with what you've got. So in a lot of cases, you have companies getting their hands on, whatever they can. And a lot of times that means getting their hands on really crappy quality copies of various forms of media, whether it's TV shows, movies, what have you. And so oftentimes when it's a buyer beware type thing. When you buy public domain stuff in any era, you need to be prepared for the possibility that it's not going to be the best quality. And I feel like I prepared myself really early on. I mean, I was like, I'm getting, such and such a movie, or I'm getting this big collection of movies for practically nothing. Like, I already immediately wasn't expecting these to be of the greatest quality. And I think, one of the reasons I was still buying them was I had a pretty strong obsession that's proven to be kind of successful, of I just wanted to own, I wanted to have this massive movie collection. This kind of started in the mid-2000s, like 2005, 2006. I just wanted to build this massive stockpile of movies that I physically owned. And so it led me to purchasing a lot of things like these 50 movie collections. This is kind of a 50, there's the Dark Crimes and Mystery Classics. It's a lot of like public domain film noir and a lot of old black and white movies that are actually in surprisingly good condition. I don't even remember what production company put these out, but they would put out these big 50 movie collections. There'd be 2 movies on one side and then 2 movies on the other side. You can see like they would put the names on the side and show what side of the disc it was on. And I bought this collection. There was like a family movie collection I bought. There was an action movie collection I bought, which actually was the primary thing that catapulted me into what I've been doing more recently, which is buying. I'm trying to build up a really large collection of old Italian crime dramas from the 70s, and that all started, or at least the initial seeds were planted when I bought the 50 movie action pack from this same company, and it included the 1972 film The Italian Connection, which is right there in that genre. And I started buying more movies from that director, and then I started expanding from that director to various filmmakers who were making this certain type of film during that time. So that was really where I got sucked into public domain, and it's just over time I've continued to build up my collection. And even today, like I know to take it with a grain of salt, but if I can get a movie for a cheap price, if I can get a movie for $3 instead of having to pay $30 for it, because I certainly ain't rich, then I'll do it. Even if I buy the better one later, at least I have this movie, and if I don't choose to spend more money on it later, I still have the movie. One of the most recent purchases I made was this, to go into my Italian connection. It's a, double feature featuring the 1972, I believe, film Crime Boss with Telly Savalas. And then it's funny because in the corner there's this, oh, it's also got Emergency Squad. This movie's substantially better. Crime Boss is a trash, boring movie. But I bought this like 2 weeks ago, whereas I bought this like 10 years ago. Some of my public domain stuff goes back to, 15 years. And then you got this, which I just bought recently. And of course, in the classic public domain way, the case is broken. It's a garbage case. It barely stays shut at all. And this was produced by Alpha Video, which is one of the many public domain companies out there. And let me just say, the quality is okay. But two major issues I have with it is Alpha Video puts their logo over the first like 10 seconds of the movie, which kind of screws that whole thing up. Put that before the movie, not actually over the movie. And neither of these films were formatted to fit my screen. It filled up like the middle 60% of my TV. So again, those are the kind of things that happen when you buy public domain. Now, the first ever public domain collection or, DVD that I bought was in the summer of 2006. I just finished taking an American film class. They showed us this documentary introducing us to what film noir was, which of course was this genre of films that historically speaking lasted from 1941 to 1958, although there are films that fit into the genre that exist outside of those years. And I was captivated. We watched this like 20-minute documentary, and I was captivated. And I was like, I want to see these movies, but I wasn't making much money. And I remember going to one of those CD video stores that used to be in shopping malls. Like I was at Clackamas Town Center, which goes to show how long ago it was. And I found this for $10. This is a film noir collection of 10 public domain film noir movies, including The Stranger, Borderline, He Walked by Night, Call It Murder, The Red House, DOA, Kansas City Confidential, Detour, The Second Woman, and Scarlet Street. And you can tell by the way the case looks, this is old. In fact, this collection is so old, and this is a Brentwood. That's the company that released this. But I've had this so long that I lost the last disc. That includes the films Second Woman and Scarlet Street, but that's okay because both of those movies are on this collection that I bought. There was a lot of crossover. If the collection was cheap enough, but it got me some new movies, I would buy it. Like a little while after, about a couple years after buying that film noir collection, I bought this film noir collection that includes 9 films, and let's see, 5 of the films in this collection are on here, but I got this for like $5 and I got 4 noirs that I hadn't seen before. So it was worth the money. And hey, one of these goes bad, I have this. That's just how I roll. And because I always love going the opposite direction of most people, I get a kick. I know a lot of other people don't. I get a kick out of getting public domain movies, and I can tell just by looking at the cases that not only is the film probably going to not be the best quality, but it's going to be just a rushed, low-end production all around. The discs are going to look probably kind of shabby and cheap. They're gonna have a really cheap intro, a little production trailer before they take you to the menu. Some of these DVDs probably aren't even gonna have menus, and if they do have menus, they're gonna be these really shoddy, like 1 out of 10 level menus, and those are some of my favorites because of how obscenely just cheap they are. So I've got some films here. I've got The Master Touch, which I bought primarily because of the car chase that's in it, but it's an okay film. It's a little better than people give it credit for. Produced by Passion Productions, and well, here's what the opening production title looks like, as well as the menu. And then this is a recent purchase. This is a Miracle Pictures, Passion Pictures, Miracle Pictures. They almost try to make it sound like they're studios themselves. And of course, busted up case that surprisingly stays shut. But this is a copy of pretty bizarre but interesting 1976 film, God Told Me So. Which, you can already see the similarities. And here's the intro title and the menu for this one as well. So apparently Miracle Pictures and Passion Pictures are the same thing, I guess. I'm sorry, I get a kick out of this stuff. It's nostalgia, it's ephemera, it's just it's very niche, but I enjoy this stuff. And this is a film I bought a while back. This is another selling point. In fact, I have 2 films that did this, that specifically Robert De Niro centric. The Swap, which I did a bad movie review on a little while back, says Robert De Niro, The Swap. You've got like 2 images of Robert De Niro, and the 2 pictures on the back are Robert De Niro focused. Robert De Niro is not the star of this film because this was a recut, essentially stolen and altered version of a film that was done 10 years earlier that had Robert De Niro in it, and I go into that big story on that video. But they promote it so much as being a Robert De Niro name that the lead character in the film, Vito Nicoletti, they say is played by Robert De Niro, and it's not. It's played by another guy altogether. And then you have Born to Win, which says it's a Robert De Niro movie. It's implied it's a Robert De Niro movie featuring Karen Black and George Segal. But it's not. It's a George Segal film. He's the lead character. Robert De Niro's barely in it, and George Segal is the only person listed up here who doesn't even show up on the front cover. George Segal is nowhere to be seen, and yet he is the lead character in this film. Anyway, this says Vina Distributors. That's all I'm finding on here. But anyway, here's the opening title and the movie menu for this movie as well. Oh, that's not too shabby. It's okay. All right. I've seen worse. They got some music, they got some stills some scenes from the movie, they got the little film strip through it. That's all right. That's not bad. And then you've got the bottom of the barrel. When movies are sold in little cases like this, and these are all Digiview productions. I love Digiview. They're trash. I mean, first of all, they were willing to sell this abomination, this literally stolen film that used some like unused reels of Robert De Niro and tried to promote it as a Robert De Niro film. And some of these films are actually, St. Louis Bank Robbery, which is an early Steve McQueen film, but they're usually these kind of semi-underwhelming, okay movies. And then I've got The Basketball Fix, and then I bought this because it just looked like a nice neo-70s, or not neo-70s, it was a 70s crime drama, Incident on a Dark Street, and I think I started watching this once and got a couple of minutes into it, and it just kind of lost me. Maybe I'll give it another shot one day. And of course, it makes sure to let you know that William Shatner's in it. And even though I never finished this, I'm willing to bet William Shatner's in this movie for about 5 to 10 minutes. But these are all DigiView DVDs. And for your entertainment or your torture, I'm going to show you the opening title and menus for all 4 of these now. That's some juicy drama. Notice it says all play. Don't just play like all play. Yeah, it's pretty archaic. So yeah, the juicy bottom of the barrel. But some are actually pretty decent. I have 2 DVDs that are from Pop Flicks, which, I'm sorry, it's a little blurry. It also says Allegro. I don't know if that's like an added company name, but these are DVD collections that would usually include like 5 or 6 movies that always had a theme to them. This one is a Cary Grant, Bob Hope comedy mix, and then this one was actually like I got this for like $3 on I think eBay. It's the Mafia Kingpin collection. Got a nice beat up Jack Palance picture, but there's actually and of course it's part of my collection. Now it does also include the Master Touch, which I already have, but the other 4 movies were movies I didn't have, and some of these, The Cynic, The Rat and the Fist, Violent Naples, Mr. Scarface, these are actually pretty well respected films in that Italian cop drama, and I got this thing for next to nothing, and I was surprised. This is essentially how the discs look. I was surprised at how well or how good the quality of most of these movies was, as well as especially on this, the menus were actually pretty decent. You notice how it doesn't say that this is copyrighted? It just says you can't get in trouble. I don't care about this. So you see, for public domain, this is pretty good. Like it's moody. Click on Master Touch, and it takes you. See, for public domain, I really like this. I feel like, and this also fits with the fact that it's a bunch of 70s movies. This is all very 70s-ish looking. I mean, that's decent for public domain. And I know PopFlix has a YouTube channel where I'm sure a lot of these films can also be found because they're public domain. You can probably find several copies, and I really liked this collection. There's a couple of films I could care less about. I mostly bought this because it got me some Cary Grant movies I didn't previously have, including His Girl Friday, which is probably one of the most iconic films that is in the public domain, along with My Man Godfrey. These are like iconic. These are films that like are in contention for like top 100 greatest movies ever made, and they're in the public domain, which is why you can find them like this. And then as far as older films go, I actually have a lot of older cinema on public domain. So I guess to get it out of the way, you can see my piles dwindling. I mentioned My Man Godfrey, and this is something you get with public domain. You get these very odd representations of things. I show this in my other video I did where I talk about my childhood with public domain cartoons and their odd renditions of Warner Brothers characters. And I noticed this is a William Powell, Carole Lombard film. And Carole Lombard, like, that's what she looks like. But this rendition of William Powell, he almost looks like a woman in this, like, rendition of his face. Like, how they make him look, and then there's how he actually looks in the film. Like, it's close, but he looks like, I don't know. And this was produced by Legend Films. I have another copy of this that, I don't know if it's a Digiview disc, but it's in one of these thin cases. It was a 2-movie set with that and Life with Father, so it was pretty much a William Powell double feature thing. And I don't really remember what the menu for this looks like. It's probably not too bad, because this is like a first time in color. I don't think that's not accurate at all. There's been a colorized version of My Man Godfrey going back a very long time. But you know what? That's what they would do. You know, most of these DVDs, it's gonna say, you know, things like digitally enhanced, or it's going to say that these were remastered, and a lot of times that's a bunch of nonsense. But if you sell something and you say it was remastered, most people are going to be like, oh, cool. You know, it deceives you into thinking it's going to be good quality. I know better from experience. Another film that's in the public domain that's actually a pretty iconic film, got this on Good Times, which actually that's a fairly well-known public domain company that goes back a while. But this is another Carole Lombard film called Nothing Sacred, which I believe came out in 37. Another one that I haven't watched in a long time, so, but probably, you know, you feel like movies like this are going to have a little bit classier menus and intro titles, so here's what this one looks like. Pretty simple. Good times, being humble, not showing anything. And this is where you start getting into these very nature friendly, very soothing, peaceful production companies. Like, I have a lot of stuff from Mill Creek Entertainment, and these I bought this mobster movie collection thing. Again, you know, you get like, what, 15, 16 movies on 4 discs for like less than $10. And these were productions of Echo Bridge Entertainment. So do you get Mill Creek, Echo Bridge? Do I have any other? I think a lot of the stuff I have, a lot of the documentaries, which I'll get to, are Mill Creek. I actually feel like Mill Creek puts out some pretty good stuff. And some of it's more original content, but you know, this mobster movie collection, again, they usually have like 4 movies, and it's on 1 disc. I've actually had a hankering to pull some of these out and watch them again, because again, I haven't watched any movies in this collection in a long time, and it shows. There's dust all over these. But yeah, it's a mobster movie collection, but it's all old films. It's all stuff like 1930s to 1950s era, and actually some pretty, you know, well-known films, even if they are now in the public domain. And you had, of course, it lead, because a lot of these were films that were obscure enough that like not really anybody famous was in them, but you know, you usually had a few well-known people. Like, you know, they lead on this case with references to Carole Lombard and Robert Montgomery, who were 2 well-known actors back then. This one leads with Yul Brynner. This one leads with one of the most iconic film noir actors around, with Alan Ladd. You got Robert Montgomery there. He was incredible. Robert Armstrong, sorry. Lots of Roberts to go around. And then, of course, you know, the iconic Peter Lorre. So again, here's another collection that I don't even remember what the like title and the menu looks like, so I'll bring it to you now. I'm sorry, I just tossed that DVD down. Yeah. Oh, so it's actually, it says Echo Bridge, but it's actually platinum, like my Charlie Chaplin collection. Yeah, because I know they have this same title. Yeah, this is where they tell you how they're remastering everything, but we can't make the prints perfect, which is probably just them lying and telling you they remastered it when they didn't. Alright, that's okay. You know, got the thumbprint, that's very crime-ish. And chapters, so you can get the chapters for each movie. 8 okay, that's you know, this is, you know, it's got some style to it. It's not bad. And this is one of the best finds. I found this at CD Game Exchange, which I don't even know if the company exists anymore. I know a lot of them were closing down, and even before the pandemic started. I got this for $6, and this is Mill Creek. And again, I think Mill Creek Entertainment is really at the top in terms of public domain stuff, because the stuff that they release that is, old content that just fell into the public domain is usually pretty good quality, which you don't find a lot in public domain. But they also put out a lot of, you know, they do kind of play around with you. They will release a lot, especially in the realm of documentary. They would release a lot of productions, especially productions that dealt with multiple different things, and they would like re-release it with like an extra couple segments, so it was almost like it was a new thing. It's public domain. You're doing what you can, but they still have produced a lot of their own documentaries that are, pretty low end in terms of budget, but they're actually pretty decent. I feel like public domain documentaries that are, original productions are actually pretty good. They get cheesy at times, but they're pretty good. But anyway, I'll get back to that. So I got this for $6. This is the pretty much every Alfred Hitchcock film that he did before coming to America, which he did 1939, 1940, and he produced Rebecca in the States, and that was, I believe, his first American produced film. And this is something they do to you, though, with Hitchcock stuff. Like, I got his masterpiece collection that's supposed to be all of his greatest films from, like, 1942 to the end of his career. But they conveniently leave out North by Northwest, which is one of his most iconic films, and they put that in his signature collection with his slightly lesser film, so then you have to buy both to get everything. Well, in this case, this has all of his early movies, even his silent films. There's even a couple of episodes of his TV's Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and then there's the bonus feature. There's almost an hour of trailers from all the other films he did after this. So this is $6. You can see the old faded tag, $6 for literally 4 DVDs with, several movies on them. And despite how many, there's like 5 movies on each disc, and yet the quality is still fairly decent for public domain and for how much content they were cramming onto these. But like with his later collection, this one is conveniently missing one Hitchcock film from that era. And that was his 1930 film Murder, which I also have. Now, I don't know if that's because Murder wasn't in the public domain or if there was some special circumstances around how that film was made. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get that for this. But this is like a great collection. It's got a decent intro menu. And I did, ultimately, because I still have a couple more to get, but I've wanted to get a complete Alfred Hitchcock collection, and this took care of almost half of it. I did eventually find a copy of Murder, and by the overall setup, this looks very public domain. It was produced by Delta Entertainment, or released by Delta Entertainment. It's playable in all regions. That's usually a pretty good sign of a public domain disc. A lot of these are region free, which is good. I hate that the regions exist. Sometimes you buy movies online, and even on a place like Amazon, where they're supposed to tell you what region it is and whether it might not work with American DVD players or whatever, they won't tell you. I've gotten screwed on that a few times because they don't stipulate it. So just make them all region free. So it's Laserlight DVD, Delta Entertainment Corporation, based out of Los Angeles. Where else? So this is probably also public domain. And what I like about this is there's one special feature. It's Tony Curtis, and it's like a 5-6 minute thing, talking, and the sound is off. Tony Curtis is completely not synced up with the sound. And that's like your main bonus feature with this movie.
Don't guess. I'm Tony Curtis. Welcome to Laserlight Special Edition Classics. In this program, you'll see Alfred Hitchcock's film called Murder. It was his first talking movie shot in England in 1929 and released in the theaters in the 1930s.
And then you got this big meaty thing. You know, right around the time I was getting into film noir, I was getting into silent film. I have a big Buster Keaton collection. I want to develop a bigger Harold Lloyd collection, but his stuff is a little bit more expensive. But I found this for like 17 bucks, and it's it's a quintessential Charlie Chaplin collection. I think it has almost all of his short films. There's a handful that are missing, and this was released by the Platinum Disc Corporation, another place I know well because I bought many a DVD. But this is a chunky set, and it's 8 DVDs, and I haven't watched many of these yet, so I don't really know if the quality's great, if the quality is consistent. But you know, they're each DVD with 7 or 8 of his films on them. Now, before I shelled out a little bit of money and bought this big behemoth of a collection, I would try to find, get copies of Charlie Chaplin films any way I could. And one of the methods I used to do this is the closest library in my county to where I lived. They had the complete on VHS collection of Hitchcock films, not Hitchcock films. There was Hitchcock films there too, but they had the complete VHS Charlie Chaplin collection that was released by Madison Entertainment, which is kind of regarded as one of the most poorly released I guess avenues you could go to find Charlie Chaplin films. And I know on the Oddity Archive, which is a channel I binge watch frequently, and I think definitely, at least to some degree, has inspiration behind why I'm doing videos like this today. And because a lot of the content, because he talks about all forms of old media, niche media, whether it's, VHS, Laserdisc, television, movies, whatever, there's a lot of stuff. And but a lot of stuff that like I hadn't seen or known about before watching his stuff. And then he did a video about public domain companies, and he discussed Madison, and he in particular used the Charlie Chaplin collection they released, and how like the soundtrack they used on there was just absurd, because during the movies, when the music would end, you would hear like the musicians chit-chatting between songs, and it was obvious that when Madison wanted to release these films, they're silent films, you got to put some music over them, and they just probably had this collection of old records and stuff from these old like jazz musicians or whatever back in the day, just riffing jazz music, and they just dumped those onto the films, because sometimes these breaks where you hear the musicians would happen between films, which isn't necessarily horrible, but sometimes they would happen right in the middle of films. And so I still have them somewhere in this house, like DVD burned copies of those Madison VHS tape releases with all that stuff on them. Dug around a little bit, and I had to burned at least 10-12 discs with Charlie Chaplin movies, and on a quick search I found 2 of them, Volume 4 and Volume 5, which is just, these were the 4th and 5th discs I burned movies on, and I guarantee at least a couple of these movies are from that Madison collection. So I'm gonna pop them in and take a look. And this is kind of a random item. It's 25 Mystery Classics, which is very deceptive because a lot of the stuff on here is like there's a lot of old Sherlock Holmes stuff, which is fine, but there's also a lot of these like obscure, like almost military based films that are just kind of in there. It's kind of bizarre. There's only really like there's like a couple of TV movies on here, which is its real selling point because there's like a movie called Death Sentence with Nick Nolte in it. But yeah, for the most part, there's a few public domain things, the kind of stuff that you would see pop up like in this collection. Things like Midnight Manhunt, Murder by Television, The Black Raven. So it can't possibly be good quality because it's what 25 movies on two, I'm presuming, double-sided discs that you can tell I've barely watched. These can't possibly be good quality. But anyway, it's another interesting, and this is produced by Pacific Entertainment, or it says Pacific Entertainment, then it says Global Access Entertainment. That's but Pacific Entertainment distributes it. I don't know anymore. These are always bizarre. And for what it's worth, here's the intro, title, and menu for this little collection. Come on, Blu-ray. God damn. All right, let's try flipping it. Oh, there is no production. Look. And you just, yeah, so there is like there's a copyright and then just titles. There's not even imagery. Like I could make a basic title or a basic menu so much better than this. It's nothing. There is literally no production company that pops up. Yeah, this is Pacific Entertainment, Global Access Entertainment. But apparently they don't care about whether we know them or not. I don't know how I have it. It's like, it's just nostalgia of why I keep some of these. I don't know why I even still have this. I think I watched the Death Sentence movie, but other than that, I couldn't care less about pretty much everything that's on there. And that brings us to all the public domain documentary stuff that I have. And again, most of it is Mill Creek stuff. This is like all Mill Creek. This is all Mill Creek right here. You've got the Hollywood versus the Mob, which is, it's okay. It's pretty much, a lot of it is just like comparing a certain old film to what was really happening along the lines that movie was based on. So, they're each these like little, and you can see, but I mean, iconic movies, Little Caesar, Public Enemy, the original Scarface. Pretty iconic old films, but a lot of these are like 45-minute episodes, and half the episode is just watching little chunks of the film, which is cool that they even were able to do that. But it's also like, if I want to sit and watch chunks of the film, I'll watch the whole film. So it kind of feels like the documentary element is kind of weak. This is probably the weakest one in the series. And here's Vegas, the city the mob made. So it's a pretty cool, like, it's a 10-part series about the origins of Vegas. I love Vegas history. And then I really love this series. Again, simple stuff. This stuff isn't going to blow you away. They usually, if they're documentaries, they only interview 4 or 5 different people, and you just see them scattered throughout the series. But this is America's 60 Greatest Unsolved Mysteries and Crimes. And there's some things I didn't even know about historically that are discussed on here. But yeah, there's 10 episodes. Each episode has, like 5, 6 segments that focus in on these various mysteries, conspiracy theories, who killed JFK, alien stuff, just covering, who did this to who killed who, is DB Cooper alive? That's some nice local history. And it's just a very simple series put out by Mill Creek Entertainment, but I'll put it on the background when I'm working on stuff all the time. That's what I do. I usually put documentaries on in the background because it's nice to have documentaries playing while I'm making pseudo documentary stuff for my channel. It kind of, I guess it gives me a push. Like, I'm making what they're making, you know? And here's where you get to, and actually I have two series that I actually really like, but they both do this thing I was discussing earlier. One is produced by Mill Creek Entertainment, the other is produced by Timeless Media Group, two public domain companies. They both put out a certain series and then later on re-released the series with added segments, which makes you feel kind of swindled, like, okay, I bought this, but now they re-released it and there's like 5 new things on it, and I liked this one, so I want those now. That happened with these. So first off, in the Mill Creek realm, probably about 12 years ago, or I guess 11, this is a 2009 release, I bought America's Serial Killers, Portraits in Evil. Very simple series. One of the most bizarre things about it is the guy that's the narrator does the mock voices of the serial killers, which is, it's funny, which this stuff shouldn't be funny, and it's a it's a decent series. You know, it delves into serial killers. It kind of discusses the psychology behind why they do what they do. They talk to criminologists and historians and, you know, people who have looked into the psychology of why serial killers do what they do. And they really cover, it's kind of funny. It's called America's Serial Killers, but episode 1 is almost exclusively dedicated to Jack the Ripper, who of course wasn't an American serial killer, but whatever. They wanted to get us off on the right foot. But yeah, they talk about, you know, some of the iconic serial killers from way back in the day, like H.H. Holmes, Albert Fish, and then you get up through the 50s, you got like Ed Gein into the 60s and 70s, you get, you know, you got your Ted Bundy, you got your David Berkowitz, the Zodiac Killer, John Wayne Gacy, and ultimately up to like people like Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, those guys. They cover, you know, that stuff. So this was, of course, one thing that's leaves a lot to be desired is it's 10 episodes on 2 discs, but this is how, they couldn't just put a little thing here and a little thing here and put the discs in there. No, they had to put them in these little envelopes, and I've actually lost one of the envelopes, so this is actually both discs in one envelope. So not ideal, but that's the way they gave it to me. And now this particular series, it says it came out in 2009. That was when this particular thing was released. Well, I got it because, again, it was like $3. I got Making a Serial Killer. So you got America's Serial Killers and Making a Serial Killer. This shows a release date of 2016, and it's got several discs. It says 13-part documentary series. So this is a 10-part, and then this is a 13-parter. However, and there's some good stuff in there. Like, it's worth the money. There's like several things that you know, I didn't have. Like they have episodes about various different types of killers. You have this one's about capital punishment primarily, but this is about, you know, spree killers and hate crime, various different things. But then the last 5 episodes on the last disc are just the first 5 episodes in this series. It's surprising. Why didn't they just put the whole 10 episodes in? But no, they only put the first 5. So they get you honed in on serial killers up through, you know, like the start of the 70s, and then they just leave you hanging. So, you know, there's some new stuff in here, but of the 13 episodes, 5 of them were ones I already have. You know, that public domain thing, they crammed a little bit of recycled content. But the one that takes the cake, and is admittedly probably my favorite documentary true crime thing to come through the public domain, is Timeless Media Group's Crimes of the Century series. Now, interestingly enough, I found this was originally released on 2 discs. It has a 2007 release date. Actually, all of these do. And I found one of these at a CD game exchange in Southeast Portland that I think is no longer there. And then randomly afterwards, I found this one at the CD Game Exchange in Milwaukee, down by where I live. And you can see the CD Game Exchange ticket is still on there. So at two different times, I actually found these two discs. And this, it's about 20th century major crimes that happened. And there's four parts. Disc one is assassinations and unsolved murders. And they go into great stuff in detail. The Lindbergh baby, the Black Dahlia, things like that. And then there's disc two is by reason of insanity and cold-blooded murder, those two parts. They talk about the Boston Strangler, O.J. Simpson, just a lot of stuff. And these discs have to be in horrible condition because they're so old, and they're actually not too bad. They're still holding firm. So I found these two. So a little while later, I see that there's a longer, kind of single, like several hour long episode of Crimes of the Century. And it's on this disc. Crimes of the Century. It's the same production company, the same thing. It's the same narrator. It's the same style. And this one had new stuff on it that wasn't in here. They talk about the Jonestown Massacre. They talk about mobsters like Al Capone, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel. They talk about the Old West stuff with Butch Cassidy and so on. But they also have JFK, Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy assassinations, which appear in this series. They have segments on the Lindbergh baby, Charles Manson, Son of Sam, the Oklahoma City bombing. Those also all are on here. But that's not it. I've actually discovered a 7-part series that is this same series. There's a 7-episode collection that has come out that includes even more segments that I found on YouTube randomly. So that's one of the things that kind of sucks, even though I actually like these productions, and these both came out in 2007, so they just released them in a variety of different ways, some having these segments that this one doesn't have, and this one over here having segments that this one didn't have. So it's not crooked. It's a little crooked. It ain't illegal, but it's shabby public domain practices. And then finally, there's the DVDs where I don't even know what the production company is. I'm getting Passion Pictures, Miracle Picture vibes on it, but I bought this film. This film is notoriously panned on places like IMDb, and I think it's because it was included in a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. This is, again, another story I talk about in one of my bad films of the 70s episodes. This has like a 2.6 on IMDb or something, but I actually enjoy it for how low budget it is. And that is the film Mitchell, which is a film starred Joe Don Baker, the iconic Martin Balsam, John Saxon, who was in a lot of these Italian crime dramas that I have. And I don't know. It shows general information, but nowhere on this case does it say the production company. But again, the look of it, I'm getting Miracle Picture, Passion Picture vibes. But it doesn't say on here. It just says it's a DVD, it's region-free, has interactive menus. That's how they like to put it. It's probably going to be a crap menu. It just says, all rights reserved as to package design and content. Unauthorized duplication is a violation of applicable laws. Even though this is public domain content, they're still trying to tell you you're going to get in trouble if you reproduce this. And a federal crime punishable by heavy fines or imprisonment. Oil rigs? What? Who's watching a movie on an oil rig? Since I can't remember... Well, wait, maybe it's on the disc itself. Nope, just says who's in it, the movie, and that it's a DVD movie. So I'm going to have to pop this in just so I can see what the production company is. So come along with me. Again, I'm thinking Paradise or Miracle. Please play. Sometimes this external DVD drive, does that. That means it's not going to read the disc. We're gonna try the Mitchell disc in here. See if we get some cooperation. Yep. Passion Productions. Well, it don't get much simpler than that. For a menu, look at that low quality. Got scene selection though. Can't hate on that. A whole whopping 6 means you get a scene change every like 20 minutes. So there's other instances where you can get screwed by public domain. Not necessarily, it's a situation that's not really their fault, but it's the fact that when things are released in the public domain, you can find the same thing released by multiple companies. So a couple years back, I bought the film The Squeeze, which I noticed has a very similar look to Mitchell in terms of the cover. The backings are almost identical in terms of how they're put out. And when I pop this open, the disc doesn't even stay in the thing anymore. But I noticed that it says this was a miracle picture. So if I would have seen that before, I probably would have ventured to guess that this Mitchell disc was going to be a miracle picture, which I was already kind of predicting it was. And this has a $1 price tag for CD Game Exchange, place where I've gotten a lot of stuff. But I know for a fact I bought this at a hawk shop. But see, this is a film called The Squeeze, Antonio Margheriti film from 1978, starring Lee Van Cleef and Karen Black. Now, there was another film that I've wanted to get called The Squeeze that was done in 1977, and it's a Stacy Keach film. So there were 2 Squeeze movies done in 1977 and 1978, and I put the 77 version on my list of films I wanted my girlfriend to get me for Christmas. So what version of The Squeeze do you think she accidentally bought? She bought the 78 version, but it's not just that she bought the 78 version. That's just the beginning of the story. I wish I had at least taken a picture to show this. So she buys the wrong Squeeze. Not her fault. How was she supposed to know that there was a 77 and a 78 one? It was a real easy thing to mix up, especially searching for movies that you haven't seen personally. So the copy comes in the mail. And here, because this is the exact, she probably bought it from the same random person on Amazon. This is how the case looked. You want to talk about the most boring, conventional public domain case, DVD case, at least that I've ever seen. I mean, look at it like Mitchell. Like, it's very cheap, poorly done, taking, you know, stock imagery and then doing this really bad, you know, cropping and sticking people. But at least there's at least like, you know, 10 minutes of creativity here. Well, here's the copy of The Squeeze as my girlfriend got it because she ended up buying it again, which I'll get to in a second. Here's how it looks. They take a moment from the film where obviously Lee Van Cleef is just talking to someone. They very poorly crop it out. Like, look at how poorly cropped his head is. And then they show the most dramatic sequence in the film, which is a plane or a car that crashes into a train and it blows up. So they have this fire in the background. But look at this. It literally just, somebody made this, like, you know, in Microsoft Word on their computer. Widescreen version. Wait, is this full screen? I think this is full screen. So hell yeah, brother. I got widescreen and full screen versions. Maybe it wasn't a waste. Wait. It says widescreen television. So I'm thinking it's a widescreen version of the film. Then I look at the side. The Squeeze full version. And then here's how the back looks. Like, somebody's just churning out public domain stuff and like making the cases like on their freaking computer at home. It says that I've never heard of this public domain company before. I'm probably gonna have to look them up a little bit just out of curiosity, but it says distributed by AFA Entertainment LLC right there. And it gives me their website, www.afaentertainment.com. Well, I have a website that I'm going to check out now. But that's not the end of the story. Before this came, which it came after Christmas, because this is the second version of this exact same setup. I haven't even opened this yet. I gotta open it. I'm not gonna send it back as a Christmas gift from my girlfriend. But we got this exact same DVD, the same case, same everything, same cover. However, it looked like somebody had taken a hammer and just smashed. The case was just shattered. Somehow the disc inside was okay, but the case had just been obliterated. I wish I still had it to show you the state that it showed up in. I honestly don't know if I blame our postal service for, whoever had it for not handling it properly, or if that was kind of how it was sent out and they just didn't care. And if I'm correct, this is a, look at this, look at this DVD. It's a surprisingly good quality case that it came in, but look at this DVD. They just slapped a kind of crazy, make you kind of feel like you're tripping case on it. And of course, this should not surprise me. It's a burned copy of the movie. You can always tell when it's got that, when it's purple, because it'll be more of a silvery color. So this is, some AFA Entertainment is probably some dude sitting at home printing out covers on his printer, and meanwhile he's just burning mass copies of public domain movies and slapping on DVD disc covers like this. And hey, you know what? If that's what that person's doing and they're making some money on it and they're not doing anything sketchy besides that, more power to them, man. All right, so this should be fun. So I'm gonna put both versions of the squeeze in just to see what the difference is, if any, in their menus. So the first one I'm putting in is the version I originally owned, not the version my girlfriend got me, which this is, I believe, a Paradise production disc. Let's take a look. Yep. Passion. Polar bear passion. And then that abrupt cut to a very stretched 4:3 image. So yeah, you can see pretty average chapters. Is there 6 like the other one? Yep, just 6. This is actually not too bad of a movie for its obscurity, but anyway, that's the older, or the copy that I've owned for longer. Okay. Now I'm gonna put in this mystery one that my girlfriend got me from this random company. See if it's the same or different. I'm assuming different because it's a different company, but let's see. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Definitely cheap as all hell. It's mostly it's just like a chapter menu. It's not really a menu, but it's got a sleek background. I respect it. Even like their introductory production title kind of matches with the start of this movie. Is there more? God, this thing isn't very long. Okay, they give you 11 chapters, so they okay. No, okay, I appreciate that. What's the quality of the movie though? Because I know the other one I have is really bad quality. Yeah, this is about the same quality. Yeah. And that is my massive public domain selection of various titles and various genres from various public domain companies, all of which have a little bit of difference in style and quality that is a difference all their own, I guess. Some good, some bad, but for all the bads that have come with the goods, I really like the fact that I have so much public domain content, as an adult that's not, cartoons and stuff. Just for how bizarre it is and the cheapness and kind of the hustling nature of some of these companies are actually like businesses that are producing decent quality productions and have like lines where they're producing these on decent quality discs. And then you've got this. But in the end, they're all almost kind of equal to a degree. They're all just public domain people making a little money off of, most of the time, not having to really create anything themselves. God love them. So anyway, I know it's kind of a niche thing. I know it's a thing that a lot of people aren't going to be interested in, but this stuff is fun to me. I enjoy the oddity of it all, the strangeness, So all that said, thank you so much for watching. As always, I appreciate it. I love ya. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Hit up my Patreon if you want to help me out that way. Link is in the description, as well as the link to my Instagram and my Facebook page that are both tied in generally to what I'm doing on my channel. And all that said, till next time, my fellow adventurers, strange DVD public domain enthusiasts, if that suits you. This has been Steve, the Amateur Historian, and I'll see you next time.